What's good, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Untoxin Gaming. Today we are going to be going over my Streets of Battle City tier list. Yeah, we're going to be going over every single skill from the Streets of Battle City, and we're going to be putting them on the list you see here. So if it's like an incredibly powerful deck that we're seeing meta relevant play with, it will be tier 1. If it's seeing semi relevant play, or like, able to fight the relevant decks, we'll put it in tier 2. Tier 3 are the decks that like are seeing some sort of play but aren't making the biggest splash in the meta, but are still there and are a threat that you have to deal with. Rogue are very similar to tier 3, but not like on the same level. And then potential are decks that like we won't be seeing a lot of this meta, but will have potential in a later format. And then garbage are skills that probably shouldn't have been printed in the box, and you will see exactly what I'm talking about as we go through. But without further ado, we're going to jump right into this. As you can see on the screen, we are talking about a Battlefield Ocean. We're going to go in alphabetical order. So Battlefield Ocean is a Mako Tsunami skill that not only works with non-effect water monsters like your Fortress Whale while you control Inumi, but also it lets you add a water monster from your graveyard to your hand, but for the rest of the turn you cannot activate effects until you normal summon that monster. So it's a way to keep some sort of advantage against your opponent whenever it's being used. It's not seeing a big wave right now in the meta as of yet, and so the one thing I want to say is that once we get better water support, if we ever get better water support, a Battlefield Ocean will definitely be one of those decks that or skills that we are going to be seeing use of. But for right now, it's not really doing much, so we're just going to put it here in potential. Next on our list is going to be a Terrible Fate. A Terrible Fate is a Arcana skill that is a once per duel skill, and it works during the end phase. Both those things are big downsides. Tribute one face of spellcaster monster you control, then your opponent destroys one card they control or sends one card from their hand to the graveyard at their choice. And that becomes the third big thing that we are seeing this skill suffer from. It's cool that it interacts with your opponent. There's not a lot of skills in speed duels that really does that. That's fair. Twisted Personality is the first one that comes to mind. This is boneless Twisted Personality. You're never going to play this skill over Twisted, so why is it even here? And so that's the reason why we're not even giving it the potential slot. We're just going to throw it right here into garbage. The next skill we're going to be talking about is the new My skill, Battle City Siren. Now this skill works once per turn instead of once per duel. It's a main phase skill, and it has the ability to change the battle position of one monster your opponent controls for absolutely free. This is really, really good. This turn, the first attack you declare must be on that monster. That becomes the only downside. Another downside is that this skill can only be used twice per duel, but again, it works really well against decks decks that establish big monsters but have low defense. A deck that comes to mind for this format in particular is going to be the Dark Gaia deck, the Evil Hero Dark Gaia deck that's running around. He doesn't have a lot of defense, so you're able to easily switch him to defense mode with your skill and then beat over him. So this is another skill that we're actually going to be putting. We're actually going to put this in Rogue. I feel like this is more of a Rogue deck and not a potential deck. And the reason why I feel this way or feel strongly about this is because of the ability to get rid of the stronger monsters. It works with Duroroid, which we saw in last format being a detrimental meta monster, and it's just a very decent card. If you build a deck based around it, it can work really well. Next on the list is going to be Collector. This is also a once per duel skill. If your opponent controls a monster, you discard 2 cards from your hand. So it's once per duel. You have to discard 2. They have to be of different types, monster, spell, and trap. Then you get to add one of the third type from your deck. It's so much that you have to do, so much of a cost for it. It's not even worth adding the other card unless you're trying to fill your graveyard with like a trap card and a monster card that have a graveyard ability. So in my opinion, this card is definitely going to go into garbage. Heart of a Warrior. Now we're starting to see more of the meta-relevant skills that we're seeing in this format. Heart of the Warrior has found a place with the Red Eyes deck and is able to actually establish multiple monsters that can beat over the Iron Grit deck, and not only that, but also create a Champion's Vigilance monster to use Solemn Judgment on any opponent's effect that you really needed to use. So you're pretty much just ditching Carbon Yedon with this skill to summon out a monster for free, then using Carbon Yedon's effect in the graveyard to banish yourself, since you can still special summon this turn and special summon the Red Eyes Black Dragon from your deck, then setting Champion's Vigilance. So you get an 1850 attack point monster, a level 7 Red Eyes Black Dragon, and then a negate. Counter trap negate. So yeah, the deck itself is really good this format, and that's the reason why that we're going to actually be putting this deck itself into the tier 1 category. Now, why is this deck tier 1 and not like tier 2 or something like that? It's because it actually has potential to fight with some of the meta relevant decks we are currently seeing. You could definitely make the argument that he does belong in tier 2, but for right now, I definitely feel like he is a tier 1 deck, and can compete right now. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. He can be played at a meta event and then still do very well in the process. The next skill on our list is the worst of the Weevil skills. Is going to be Insect Infestation. Although it's better than some Weevil skills we've gotten, we've definitely in the past seen much stronger skills, and in current have seen much stronger skills than Insect Infestation. It's a Parasite Paranoid skill, and it just makes it to where they can't be tributed while they're on the field. If all monsters on the field are insect monsters level 7 or higher, insect monsters you control can attack directly, and then once per duel you can discard one card and place a Parasite Paranoid from your graveyard to the top of your opponent's deck face up, and treat it as if it were added by its effect. So it's able to summon to the opponent's field, deal some burn damage, 1,000, which is actually a lot in speed duels, and then turn all their monsters into insects. So it's a really interesting skill, and I think it does have potential. We will likely be seeing some sort of burn variant come from this like we did in Duel Links, but I don't think it's doing anything right this second. That being said, I'm probably going to have to put this card into potential instead of rogue. The next skill on our list is actually going to be Intel from the Cosmos. This is a really unique skill that has the ability that your opponent must reveal all cards they draw during their draw phase. So you get hand knowledge. Not only that, but we've already seen the Mind Crush deck, Millennium Crush, I think is what it was called, be able to mind crush cards from the opponent's hand, and that can be very powerful, especially if you're like using the new Cosmo card that came out with the Jinzo deck in Streets of Battle City. This card seems like it's made for that card in particular. So all in all, I think that this skill has more than just potential. I think it has rogue potential at that, just because I've seen it on the ladder actually performing well on Dueling Book rated, and so I feel like that this deck is, if you're trying to play a fun Jinzo deck for the format, then this is the rogue deck you want to choose. Next, we're going to be going over my favorite skill of the box, Iron Grit. This turns a Gearfried the Iron Knight into a tower, making him unaffected by the card effects. So not only does your opponent have to establish a monster with more than 1,800 attack points to beat over him, but they can't target him with anything. He's really hard to get off the board. You have to pretty much be playing big monsters in your deck, like the Heart of the Warrior skill to summon your 1850 Guiltia. And that is really good in this current format because of the Token Sunday card running around in the Insect deck that's been playing. Iron Grit right now is, of course, probably, like I said, my favorite skill of the format. I've been playing multiple different versions of this deck that blow up the entire field and leave your Iron Knight standing. And so I think this deck also definitely deserves a spot in our Tier 1 spot. Kybercorp's Research is a very unique skill that has the ability of once per duel being able to shuffle a monster from your graveyard into the main deck, then send a card from your hand to the graveyard, and then during your next turn you draw 2. So I think this card definitely screams digging for gold vibes, and we have seen digging for gold in multiple metas for speed duels. So being the fact that it just seems like another version of this card, and I have been seeing a lot of my friends toying around with this, definitely makes me feel like this card is more than just potential but rogue. So it's one of those things, like I said, people are playing it, people are testing it, people are using it on the DB ladder and at locals, and it has potential, more than just potential. It has had complete decks built around it. So Kybercorp Research is definitely going to go into the rogue spot. And now we're on to another bad Joey skill, Malicious Motivation. This is Possessed Joey. It's a once per duel skill that blows up your opponent's entire field by discarding one card if they control 3 monsters. Also, for the rest of the turn, any damage your opponent takes is halved. This goes really bad. The second that they see that you're on Evil Joey, they're not going to establish a full board of monsters. I can see it being like okay in some scenarios, like the current bug deck. It seems like it's fine against that. If they want to establish 3 cards, it could be an interesting little side card against that deck. That way they're not establishing multiple tokens. But Malicious Motivation, again, I haven't been seeing a lot of people use it. I want to put it in potential, but I also don't feel like it really deserves to be in potential. I feel like the other 2 skills I talk about are more meta relevant than this card actually is, so we are definitely going to be putting this at the low end of garbage, but for right now that's where he's going to sit. Alright, so my Precious Queen. This skill is the deck of the format. This is what our entire format has found itself warped around. Every format with Speed Duels, it seems like there's always one deck that the entire format has to warp itself around. There's always that overpowered deck that everybody has to play around, and My Precious Queen is that deck of this format. It's not Cyber Angels, it's not Showy Beatdown, it's My Precious Queen. You would think that they would get the hint that maybe we're sick of Weevil, but here we are. No, I'm not going to complain too much. This skill is actually really interesting and really cool. If we didn't get Token Sunday, I feel like the skill itself would have just been like a stall burn deck. But so I do appreciate the fact that they gave us Sunday Wisset. That way I'm seeing more of a variety of the decks that come out of this. But My Precious Queen is a skill that allows you to normal summon level 7 insect monsters for 1 less tribute. Not only that, but during each end phase, yours and your opponents, you can generate a 100/100 level 1 Earth insect token. So you keep board presence, and you're always keeping up with your opponent. There's no way that you're going to lose advantage against them playing this skill. Not only that, but this tokens that you're generating can be used for the tribute summon of insect monsters. So the level 7s can be tributed for the insect token you've generated. And not only that, but you can tribute a generated insect token for your lower level ones, like Insect Princess, or what's the other one? The Mantis one that nobody's ever going to play. But yeah, you can tribute 1 insect monster from your hand instead when attacking with an insect queen monster you control. That is the part of the skill that is the worst. All in all, you see all these skills in this entire thing. They all have restrictions. They all have downsides. But you see My Precious Queen and everything's free. There is nothing wrong with this skill. Like I said, they release all these skills that have downsides, but then you get a skill that does like multiple different things, all for free, no downside, and of course it's going to be the best deck of. Alright, now you see them. This is the Dark Magician skill that I thought was really interesting when it came out. I was toying around with it a little bit, but for the most part, it hasn't really made too big of a wave, I guess, in the current meta. I mean, anybody getting into Speed Duels is going to immediately see their Secret Rare Arcana Dark Magician, and they're going to be like, I want to play this deck. They're going to read the skill and be like, draw 5? That's insane, and you're not wrong. It's freaking crazy. And so that's why I can't really see myself putting this at Rogue, but I definitely can see myself putting this at Tier 3. It's a deck that can utilize the new Dark Renewal trap card, and not only that, being able to draw multiple cards, it's just a really good skill all in all. It's definitely a meta competitive deck, but it's not like the best decks we're going to be seeing. So we're definitely going to be seeing this in the, I want to say, we'll put it in Tier 2. We'll put them in Tier 2. I definitely feel like it has potential to be in that spot. I think, all things considered, it's probably going to be sitting right here, at least for right now. We'll put him in Tier 2, at least for right now. If I make decisions later, then yeah, but he's going to be a low Tier 2 as we continue to go on. Premature Material, this is another skill that has high potential in this format. The reason why is because it has an ability to Monster Reborn a monster from your graveyard that is a fusion material. So you special summon 1 normal monster from your graveyard whose name is mentioned on that fusion material, but its attack and defense becomes 0. All you do is you use this skill, summon the monster, tribute it off for a monarch monster, or you can creature swap it to your opponent because its attack and defense becomes 0, and then you just kill the opponent. It has, again, high potential, but it's also not as much of potential as a Bountiful Ocean or the Insect Infestation. So he's going to go right behind them in potential. Next is Slimy Disposition. It's one of those decks that are seeing play again. It's not, in my opinion, I don't like this skill. I think it's cool that you get to, like, once per turn, you can special summon a humanoid, slime, or worm drake from your graveyard in attack position, but it cannot be tributed except for the tribute summon of a divine beast monster. I would have loved this skill if this was a once per turn special summon one of these guys from your graveyard for free, and they can't be tributed. That would be so cool. But that's still, or they can be tributed for anything, like for a monarch. It would have been so cool. But still, you're just every turn bringing a monster onto the board. And again, it's creating a board presence. I think this deck does have potential, more than just potential, because you are establishing a monster every turn. And then if you really want to play the fusion monster in the deck, you also can have a, I think, 2,000 or 2,200 attack point fusion monster that you can go into if you absolutely want to. I just see that most of the decks that are playing this are just playing it for the continuous monster reborn recursion that it's having with the skill. So we are definitely going to be putting Slimy Disposition here. It's going to be, I want to say, Tier 3. Again, this is just low Tier 3. It's not going to be like the end all be all of tier 3. There's definitely other skills in here that I think are way better than it, but it's if we wanted to create a tier 3 list with everything that we've went over prior to this, I definitely feel like this is one of those decks that belong here. Speaking of slime, Slimy Slime is here. Slimy Slime is a skill that lets you turn your jam breeding machines into MST, non-targeting MST at that. So that itself is very strong. And then also it says once per turn during your standby phase, if you special summon Revival Jam by its own effect, draw 3 cards. That's the part of the skill we're not really going to be paying too much attention to. It is definitely the your jam breeding machine turning into an MST. And I like that a lot. But unfortunately, it's not seeing a lot of play. We're actually seeing more of Slimy Disposition in this format than Slimy Slimes. And I really hate that. But it's one of those skills that are going to get stronger as the format develops. You have to think, like, non-targeting spell and trap card or removal is really good. So at some point along the lines, that Slimy Slimes will be a playable skill that everybody's going to want to play in their deck. It's just we're not in that format right now. Not only that, we have to wait for Waking the Dragon to inevitably get hit to 1 or even banned from the format. So Slimy Slimes himself is going to go into potential for right now. Stalked by the Rare Hunters. We're looking at another really bad Rare Hunter skill. I don't think any of the Rare Hunter skills we got are actually playable. I'm not going to lie to anybody here. If it's a guy that you like and a deck that you like, hey, cool. But me personally, I don't like these skills. They don't really do too much for the format, and they all have weird restrictions and cost. Again, we're looking at another once per duel skill, during the end phase skill, discard 1 card skill, then choose 1 monster in your opponent's graveyard that was destroyed and sent to the graveyard and set it onto the field. Like, all that restrictions, and you still have to set the monster face down. It's not even like a good Goyo Guardian. It's not even like a skill Goyo Guardian. It's just so much that you have to do into it. It's once per duel, so the second you use it, you can't use it again. During your end phase, not the end phase, like My Precious Queen. And then discard 1 card. Like, so much cost. Again, this is going right into garbage. Both the Rare Hunter skills are not that great. The Dragon Hunting Swordsman. Now this skill I definitely gave some crap, but it really does like depend on the way that you're building the deck, how it's working and everything. I think that the deck is very strong in certain scenarios. I've been testing out a build myself with DNA Surgery and just being able to tune into the Dragon Hunting Swordsman as fast as possible. I definitely don't think it's in potential. I think it is rogue. I don't think it's tier 3 by any means. It's a rogue deck that is fun to play. People are going to enjoy playing it, and you're bringing out a strong boss monster that's very iconic to the format that works really well with a powerful trap card and DNA Surgery. So, in my personal opinion, yes, this is a rogue-based skill. Next, we have the Machine Menace. Once per duel, if your opponent controls a face-up trap, attribute 1 machine or psychic monster you control, then special summon 1 Jinzo from your hand or graveyard. So your opponent has to control face-up trap. It's bad. Yeah, this might actually be one of the worst skills we got in the format. I would much rather play a Rare Hunter skill over it. So the Machine Menace it's cool in a scenario where they have a face-up trap, so if they're playing trap monsters, you can play against that. The deck I built for it, and I built a deck for every skill in Streets of Battle City, utilize summoning out a trap monster and then creature swapping it to the opponent's field, but all in all, this skill is not doing anything. And yeah, we're definitely putting this as the worst skill in the box. There is no reason to ever play this skill. Ultimate Wizardry, my second favorite skill of the box. Unfortunately, it's not doing too much in this format, but that's actually completely okay. It says, when you activate this skill, places 1 spell counter on each face-up spellcaster monster that you can place a spell counter on. So if you have 3 that can have spell counters on it, you put 1 counter on all of them. And then once per turn, you can choose one of them, and then give them an additional counter. So you can use both of these effects in the same turn. The first one is going to be when you first activate the skill. So that's going to give 1 counter, and then when you do it again, it's going to give it 2. And then when you summon Breaker Magical Warrior, he will get his own. So Breaker himself turns into Harpy Feather Duster with this skill. And I like that. That is so cool. And not only that, it works with like Blast Magician, Magical Marionette. It's like a really cool deck, a really cool skill, and it's very strong. So for right now, I'm going to be putting this card at tier 2 in front of the Dark Magician skill. And to end this tier list off with a bang, we're going over the best skill in the entire game. No, I'm just kidding. Whale of the Tail. Now, surprisingly, I'm not going to put this card in where most people would think it belongs. Whale of the Tail is really interesting because you essentially give your Fortress Whale an ability, being that your opponent cannot target face-up water monsters you control with spell, trap, or effects. I've been finding a lot of fun building around this deck. I think that this skill is actually so cool. And so this, again, is personal preference, like the entire list itself. So if you have anything to disagree with, it's, again, my personal preference on what the tiers. are like. But I'm willing to debate. I'm willing to talk with you all. Whale of a Tail himself is going to go into tier 3 at in front of Slimy Disposition. All in all, this is essentially what I think the tier list looks like. The only order that in particular I can honestly say is that I think that this order here is correct for tier 1, this order here is correct for tier 2, and this order here is correct for tier 3. But for the rest of them, I'm not going to sit here and like rearrange them or anything. They have their own unique abilities and things that make them good or make them have potential or just puts them straight in the trash, except for Machine Menace. So yeah, all in all, it is definitely one of those things where if you're looking to get into speed duels or you're trying to figure out a tier list, this is probably where you want to go. Other than for that though, guys, I hope you all have a great day. I hope you all enjoy this band or tier list. And again, if you have any questions or want to join the Speed Duel League Discord, leave a comment in the comment section down below. I'll answer your questions, send you a link. And if you have any debate you want to do with this list, hey, I'm willing to talk with you all and communicate with you all there. But above all else, I want you all to have a great day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.